What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fantasy Golf Bag podcast slash live stream. We'll be here previewing the Rocket Classic and using a couple of the new features at fantasygolfbag.com. So let's recap a little bit of the Travelers Championship. I thought Tommy would actually get it done, and not going to happen. Definitely unlucky on the last putt. A terrible start, but he hung around. Honestly, he did a pretty good job hanging around long enough. And then Keegan obviously hung around long enough. But definitely a little bit disappointed that he couldn't get across the line. That putt on 18, definitely very unlucky to hit whatever it hit. Ball mark, some type of, spike mark, something. And kick it offline, just not meant to be. And then Keegan's clutch when he needs to be. Honestly, he's done very well in the opportunities that he's been given to come out on top, and obviously likes the Northeast quite a bit. But he's an interesting character. I think mentally he's probably up there as one of the better ones when he gets in contention, and almost feels like he's, even when he's trailing by 3 shots or something, he still feels like he's in it. So shout out to Keegan. Obviously, that's fantastic, and a big win for him in the Ryder Cup, for the Ryder Cup team. We'll see how that all shakes out. So it'll be interesting what the next couple months holds for him. And then for Tommy, we'll see what the next time he gets into contention, if he can get across the line. Otherwise, some of these things can definitely eat at you. And golf's a weird sport. I think if everybody listening to this plays a little bit of golf, your scar tissue that builds up. You play, if it's the same golf course, if you play some hole and you hit it out of bounds, the next time you get to that hole, you're thinking about that last bad tee shot you hit out of bounds, or you miss a green and chunk it. The next time you have a chip, you're thinking about, man, the last time I chunked it, and you're thinking, so let's not do that again. So golf's a tough sport in that regard, that scar tissue can build up quickly. And it doesn't take that many bad shots or bad experiences to really kind of destroy your confidence going forward. So we'll see, hopefully he can kind of get back into contention soon and maybe get across the line sooner than later. But it happens to a lot of guys that they just don't get it done. And eventually it is in your head that it's not going to happen. And you almost will yourself for it not to happen, which is a weird thing to say. But the same way Tiger would will himself to win, and Keegan almost seems like he does that from time to time now. Tommy, we'll see. We'll see what happens from here. Definitely frustrating for sure. Overall, pretty good week. We got kind of screwed on the final day for matchups with the twosomes getting reshuffled and being split T threesomes. I think we had 10 round 4 matchups out, and they went 7-3. And then those all got voided. So none of those counted, except for one, which I actually need to go back and check. I think one matchup somehow stood, which was Davis Riley over Dunlap, which was a winner. But all the rest of the twosomes got voided because the groupings changed, which I don't know the purpose of that, to be honest. You think you would just take that market off and just keep the bets that are there and then open up the 3-ball market. But yeah, it seems like DK voided them. I'm sure FanDuel did. Hard Rock voided them. So that's a bit frustrating. Otherwise, we swept Saturday. We were 10-7 on Thursday, and then we almost swept on Friday, and we swept on Saturday, and pretty strong on Sunday, considering all the good ones got voided. So looking forward to this week. We'll have the outrights up, and then the round by round matchups, which have been pretty lucrative. Probably won't get into discussion here, but honestly, like Hard Rock, there's obviously 3 balls and twosomes when there's 2 balls on the weekend. But there's a bigger edge from what we calculate in those 2-ball markets, because they do include ties, which is kind of bad in a sense. But when you run any of our stuff for 2 balls, they don't tie very often, and the implied probability is like 11 point something percent. That drops the actual win rate for everybody else, and our win rates are still pretty high. So it's an interesting discussion on the actual 2 balls and what worse odds, but a tie is a push, or better odds and a tie is a loss. So to be continued. But yeah, we see a pretty big edge in those 2 balls. And obviously 3 balls, you get better odds, but you're playing against 2 other guys. And in the grand scheme of things, the variance is pretty high, or can be high in 3 balls. We also put out 72-hole matchups, and I think 3 of 4 won, which is good. So onward we go. Talking about the Rocket Classic, I'll go ahead and bring this up, and we'll dive right into it. So Detroit Golf Club, let's talk about that. We'll go back. Course Preview Pro. And let's talk about everything we have to kind of look at this week for Detroit Golf Club. And then we will look at the new time machine for the Stat Model Pro, which I'll just kind of quickly preview. So you guys might want to stick around to check that out. So now, obviously, all the data in our IQ tools and Stat Model Pro, custom stats, custom models, all the typical standard stuff. We now have a time machine built into this. So before, you would just go to the time machine, you could see any of those years for the current event and see their lead-in form based on these lead-in statistics, just a template that we have for all of our lead-in form stats that are usually most predictive. Now you can go back to any year, any event, and check that out. So we will do that when we finish the preview here. So we'll load up the 2024 Rocket Mortgage Classic. You can see the winners and the stats, and we'll go through that in just a second. So let's go back to our Course Preview Pro, and we'll talk through this. All righty. So Detroit Golf Club, the last 5 winners here. Last year, Cam Davis minus 18, Ricky Fowler minus 24, Tony Finau minus 26, Cam Davis again in 2021 at minus 18, and Bryson at minus 23 in 2020. This is a par 72, 7,300 yards. So a lot of scoring, obviously. The par 5s play over a shot and a half under par, or almost a shot and a half under par. I think they actually do play over a shot and a half. Over a shot and a half, almost 2 shots under par, the par 5s. Most of the par 4s play under par, except for this handful in the middle of the round, 6, 9, 11, and 12. 2 of those are par 3s. Those are the over par holes, and then 18 plays a little bit over par. Everything else is considerably short, making a lot of birdies. Even some of the par 3s are playing under par, hole 15 and hole 5, which is unusual for a PGA Tour course that the par 3s would play under par. Some of them would play under par. We got it's a Donna Ross design, bent grass at 12 on the step meter. Average par 3, 191. Average par 4, 428. And average par 5, 579. All in all, pretty short. If you consider these as averages, which they are, consider the average of all the holes. 191 as an average par 3 is pretty short. 428, definitely on the shorter side. And 579 is about average on the PGA Tour. Maybe slightly below average, but it's probably right at the average mark. Obviously, a very low-scoring event. So as we work our way down into the kind of key statistics that we look at, average winning score at 22 under par, average cut line just south of 5 under par. So a pretty low cut line. This is kind of in line with the American Express earlier in the spring. Driving distance 298, which is on the higher end. We'll look at the driving buckets here in a second without bearing the lead. It's a pretty driver-intensive golf course. Driving accuracy is up, pretty generous fairways, low missed fairway penalty, just not very demanding off the tee. It's easier to hit fairways. Driving distance is definitely up. And as far as it's slightly less than the tour average, basically a tour average golf course with higher driving accuracy, lower missed fairway penalty. What do we have the rough at? It's just the rough at 4 inches, but it's really not that penalizing, mainly because it's so short. Distance penalty 0.17, down just a little bit, which I find surprising. So all in all, driving is about as easy as it gets for the PGA Tour. You're going to hit a lot of drivers. It's going to be easier to hit fairways. It's going to be less penalizing when you miss the fairways. Pretty straightforward off the tee. Proximity of the hole is up a little bit, 40 feet. Don't really dive into that stat too much, but definitely a larger proximity number than we're typically see. Green regulation percent 71%, which is 6% higher than the tour average. Missed green regulation is down, so scrambling is typically easier around here. Green regulation from the fairway 80%, which is pretty high. Green regulation from the rough 50%, also high. Birdie or better is higher, bogey or worse is lower. All in all, really easy, generous off the tee, generous into the greens, really easy golf course. We'll get into the specifics here in a second, how you can use like the IQ tools to kind of build out a course fit. But we'll take out the winner and just look at this really quickly. So this is the strokes gained by finish position. Again, doesn't mean too much from a lead-in perspective. This is simply what the results show and where players gain the most or, differentiated the most in any of the strokes gained categories. Again, doesn't matter so much for lead-in form. It's just telling you what happened. So off the tee, not a lot to be gained. It's just going to be all in the same ballpark. You're going to hit the same drivers. Everyone's hitting driver mostly to the same distance. There's not a ton, even though the missed fairway penalty is down a little bit. It's not really a big bomb and gouge golf course, especially because you have to make so many birdies. So definitely hitting the fairway is important, but they are going to have to hit a lot of drivers. So definitely consider that. Approach is up a little bit. Nothing crazy. I think the big one here is putting. If you look at putting, try not to hover over every single thing. There we go. You can see putting has a big jump from the field, everyone that made the cut, up to the top 25 and the top 10. So you can see everyone that made the cut gains about 1.3 strokes putting on average. If you look at just the top 25, they're gaining almost 3 strokes putting, so double. And then the top 10 is over 4 strokes putting, so an extra shot and a quarter putting. So putting is unfortunately the name of the game when you look at the good finishes at this event. Driving distance distribution, as always, the overall driving distance number is very misleading. You can't really decipher too much from that number itself. You got 290 to 310. You got 12 tee shots. That's basically the gist of it. You can go down the list here. 298, 300, 302, 299, 297, 297, 301. Everything is literally right at 300 on the dot. You have one tee shot 270 to 290, 282, and you have one tee shot 250 to 270 at 257 on hole 8, and hole 8 plays just slightly under par. But yeah, the big chunk is obviously 290 to 310. Everybody's hitting drivers on 12 holes, and everyone's hitting it to about the same distance, which is almost, ironically 300, almost right on the dot, 300 off the tee on all 12 of those holes. So that is going to be the biggest focus. Honestly, I probably would just throw out 250 to 270 and 270 to 290. And just when we look at the IQ tools, just look at 290 to 310. That's going to be a huge weight. Honestly, if you weighted this, the 3.5% or 4% that you would put into each of those categories isn't going to move the needle anyway. So I would just put everything you have into 290 to 310, and we'll talk through some statistics to help us there. Approach distance distribution. This is similar to last week, to be honest. A few less in the 175 to 200 bucket, but we have 200 plus, mostly of the par 5s, and I think if I can come down here, I think the par 3s. Just really quickly, let's see what the long ones are. 207 and 233. Yeah, 207, 233. So that's 2 of those approach shots. And then obviously the par 5 second shot approaches. 50 to 125, 25% of approach shots, pretty high, really high for a PGA Tour course. 125 to 150, right at 18%. 150 to 175, the exact same. It's going to be basically, 200 plus, a big look at 50 to 125, and then 125 to 150, 150 to 175. Again, I would, argue I could throw out 175 to 200 and just focus on the biggest bulk of approach shots, which to me, if you really narrowed it down to 2, it would be, 200 to 225 and 50 to 125. But obviously for the IQ tools, we're going to easily add in this 125 to 175 bucket and give us a nice course fit for everybody that's been playing the last 3 months or so and kind of see who's been excelling the best. Lead-in form is interesting to say the least. This is kind of hand in hand with the lower scoring events we see in the fall, and obviously keep going back to the American Express, but it has a very similar feel to it. Much different rough and missed fairway penalty, but it's the same exact profile from a scoring perspective. So Cam Davis last year, really awful. I mean, that's a course history. If anything, it would be course history. Came into the event. He had 28 rounds in the last 12 events, playing a lot of golf. All of those were shot link rounds. He was losing in every single category. Just absolutely, absolutely awful. Ricky Fowler, Tony Finau were a little bit different. So they kind of came in with good form and were able to capitalize on it. Cam Davis in 2021 was a little bit better than what he was last year. Nothing crazy. You can see off the tee was positive. Putting was positive. Green regulation slightly. Birdie or better was slightly up. That kind of goes hand in hand with green regulation putting. But yeah, there's not an easy single group of stats to kind of look through the lead-in form and see what's the trend. We'll look at the time machine here in a second, but you can definitely see here just off the winners. Besides Fowler and Finau looking really good in every category leading into that event, and kind of honestly the chalk of the event because they were both at 14-1 to win. Bryson's kind of in that same boat, I guess, in 2020. But if you look at the two Cam Davis victories, he was 95-1 and 62-1. Didn't really do much leading into that event and somehow figured it out. And then there's Nate Lashley back in 2019, a very similar profile, kind of sporadic, I guess, to what Cam Davis brought. We'll look at the time machine here in a second. As far as field history, we'll look at the best top 10 finishers really quickly. We'll have DK Salary, and we have Taylor Moore with 3 top 10s, a 6th, a 4th, and a T10, which is interesting. I kind of go back and forth on Taylor Moore being a good player when the conditions and the scoring is difficult. And I'm surprised to see his history here has kind of held and been so consistent. But Taylor Moore will probably be a popular option this week. Has had pretty decent form over the last couple months. Alex Noren has 2. Kevin Kisner has 2, although the last couple were missed cuts, and he's just playing terrible. We got Cam Davis with 2 wins and 2 top 17s. And then Cameron Young with a 2nd and a 6th. So he likes the golf course quite a bit. We can look at everyone with no missed cuts. We got Chris Kirk, all made cuts since 2020. Danny Willett has quite a few, but not very good finishes. Basically a T4 and then dead last in every finish. Keegan, mediocre. Patrick Rogers, mediocre. Honestly, the course history from a made cut perspective is basically they made the cut, but didn't do much with it. Taylor Moore shows up there. Davis Thompson looks okay. Wyndham Clark looks okay, but no one really stands out. Cam Young, like we talked about. And then we can look at the all missed cuts. Or the most missed cuts. We got Woodland, unfortunately, doesn't like this place very much. Sam Ryder, you got Badley, Snedeker, Simpson, Garnett, all like the bad plays. So nothing really crazy there. You could always throw in the salary and sort and just see who has the worst course history from a miscut perspective. Nate Lashley, win and then miscut, T57, T56, T25. So yeah, just kind of all over the place with some of the finishes. And then a few of those guys really have good, consistent. Cam Davis obviously has been pretty consistent. Jaeger's been okay. Taylor Moore we talked about. Morikawa's had 1 T2. So yeah, not too much to kind of pull from the course history perspective besides Cam Davis, which is kind of a strange one. But that kind of goes hand in hand with events that are super volatile from a scoring perspective. The course history tends to be a little bit all over the place. It really depends on what people did that week in terms of putting. It's a tough one. Typically, the tougher golf courses, the better ball strikers will prevail, which is a little bit more consistent. And when you go to these low-scoring events, putting is really the name of the game. And you can see that here for all the top finishers, gaining a lot of strokes putting. This is the strokes gained. Look at it. Dylan Wu, T10, Andrew Novak, T20, Taylor Moore T10, Sam Stevens T10, sixth place, second place Aaron Rai. So yeah, definitely take a look at the incoming putting numbers because I think that's going to be a decent look at it. Off the tee, you can look at all that stuff. So let's dive into the time machine. We'll quickly overlook real quickly the top 10 from the last couple of years and just glance through this. And then we can go into the time machine and the stat model and look through a specific custom weighting and see what we can kind of boil it down to. So obviously lead in form for the best finishers last year off the tee was pretty high. If you look through that, Rico Hoey, Luke Clanton, Minwoo Lee, Sam Stevens, Aaron Rai, Davis Thompson, Taylor Moore, Cameron Young, all really good. And you can see that's green for the off the tee number. That's the biggest. Approach is negative. Big outliers in Rico Hoey, Taylor Moore, Hayden Springer. That really kind of throws a wrench into things. You think approach is pretty stable for good finishers, and this week is not the case. Putting, a little bit, kind of half and half, I guess. Overall negative leading in, mainly because of Springer and Hoey. Hoey was really in some poor form with approach and putting. And then the top of the board, Eric Van Rooyen, Luke Clanton, Minwoo Lee, Dylan Wu. We can look at a few of the other ones really quickly. Driving distance. Not too bad. Honestly, the top guys, Minwoo Lee, Cameron Young, the rest were kind of right around 5 yards, give or take. Nothing crazy there. This isn't like just all 10-plus bombers. Driving accuracy, we can always look at that. Mostly no. We got Aaron Rai and Luke Clanton. Clanton was just playing phenomenal at that point. Nothing really stands out. A lot of poor driving accuracy that did okay. Birdie or better really quickly. Both all over the place. And bogey or worse, same thing. So really the main thing that came in from 2024 was off the tee. Let's quickly look at 23. Look at off the tee. Similar look at it. You got the bottom guys, just a few kind of randoms that came in with poor form and did okay. The top of the board, it's still positive off the tee. Looks pretty good. Approach a little bit better. So that's nice to see. Putting about the same. No one's like an excellent putter, but definitely some more positives. Driving distance was less. So driving distance, definitely not a thing. Driving accuracy, besides two, Glover and Rye, nothing really crazy. Birdie or better, mixed. Bogey or worse, mixed. We'll do like one more. Let's do 21 when Cam Davis won again. Yeah, off the tee, pretty consistent. Approach is the same thing, just kind of all over the place. And then putting a little better, quite a lot better than the last few that we looked at. Driving accuracy. Yeah, so really looking at this, most of this is somewhat random. They don't really look at around the green. That's hard to judge anyways, but off the tee was a big one. You could probably just bake it in with tee to green if you want. So let's go do that. So we are looking at the 2024 Rocket Mortgage Classic. I'm going to throw in some, we'll do my stuff. So this is strokes gained and spectrum. I like to look at that. We can sort by finish. And you can see Cam Davis was pretty poor. If you look at spectrum off the tee, though, Minwoo Lee finished second. He was first. Davis Thompson was 15th. Cameron Young was 8th. Pretty close with strokes gained off the tee. I do like the spectrum number quite a bit as you go down. Always going to be outliers. Maverick McNeely looked great. Didn't do much. Taylor Montgomery sucks and did the same as Maverick McNeely. So, like, those things definitely can be inversed. Looking through this. Yeah, definitely some guys down at the bottom that missed the cut that probably shouldn't have. So maybe we look at why that happened. We can do average. Let's see. Go back to the bottom really quick. So let's looking at like spectrum approach. You can see obviously a lot of negatives for the worst performers. That's pretty common. I'm more concerned with the guys right in the middle. Like, what were they doing so much worse? Birdie or better? Might be birdie or better. Yeah, I would say a mix of birdie or better and bogey or worse, to be honest. It goes kind of hand in hand with the guys that are playing well, making birdies is good. There's also guys that are playing well, not making as many birdies, but they're making less bogeys because of how well they're playing. And you can kind of see that here with Cam Davis. Wasn't making a lot of birdies, was avoiding more bogeys. Same with Minwoo Lee was doing both well. Davis Thompson was doing both well. If we go down to the middle range, which is what I would be concerned with, kind of that gray area, I would be looking for all of these guys. There's a few doing well. Maverick McNeely is just a weird one from last year. And then you look at all these guys that missed the cut. Tom Kim was with good form, missed the cut. Nothing really stands out as like an outlier. Again, just trying to get a overall picture for lead-in form. Adam Schenk, Olesen. I think if we weight them together, which we can do, let's see. Let's just run that really quick and just see what it shows. All right. So let's take a look at the top. Yeah, see that's going to be similar to what you would see most of the events with low scoring. So you can see here, if you ran this model last year, we can tinker with the weights, we can tinker with what stats we bring in, which is nice. You have Aaron Rye finished second. He was second in the model. Davis Thompson finished second. He was sixth. Luke Land was 10th. He was seventh. Miscuts, Tom Kim, Brandon Berry with 6 rounds, 2 shot link. Keith Mitchell missed the cut. He was probably pretty popular. A bunch of miscuts in here. So it's really kind of fine-tuning, probably a bigger bump to off the tee. Because if you look through these big chunks of off the tees, this is a pretty mediocre range, and bogey or worse, birdie or better. So let's since we're all kind of actively looking through this, let's take out approach. Put that at 0. Green regulation we'll put at 0. Proximity we'll put at 0. And actually, we'll leave spectrum approach at like 10. Off the tee, we'll bump up to 20. Actually, we got spectrum and strokes gain off the tee. So we'll do like 10 and 15 because I would prefer spectrum over strokes gain. And then normalize it to 100. Take a look at that. All right. So we got 2. So a little bit closer. So we got Davis Thompson finished second. Aaron Rye finished second. They were 1-2. Pretty good. Luke Clanton 10th. Minwoo Lee second. So we got 3 second-place finishers in our top 8. So that's pretty good. We're obviously going to capture some missed cuts in there. You can kind of keep diving in to see how we can add some other stats to see if we can bump them down a little bit. Might be a little bit of trial and error for sure. Just kind of glancing through this. But yeah, overall, pretty good. You would probably certainly miss out on Cam Davis is my take because of how poor his incoming form was. There's really nothing you could even weight that would pull him up. So yeah, we'll go with that. And then you can exit, keep the same model. And this would be the top of the board for this week. Using that same exact model from that year, you can go back to 23, 22, etc. So Norman Zhang, obviously only 6 rounds, so I would obviously keep an eye on sample size for this type of event with so many of the stars having played the last 3 events. And these guys mostly didn't play the U.S. Open. Some didn't. Definitely didn't play the signature events. So keep an eye on sample size. You might have to go back to last 16 or 20 events, maybe a few more rounds. But this would be it. Norman Zhang, Chris Goddard, Emiliano Grillo, Alex Smalley, Kurt Kitayama, Antoine Rosner, Patrick Cantley, Keegan Bradley, Thorbjornsen, Siwoo Kim. We'll see if he stays in the field. Ben Griffin, Colin Morikawa. So a pretty good look at it. Really easy to kind of hop in there, look through any of those years. You go back to 23, go to Rocket Classic, or was it Rocket Mortgage Classic back then? Do the exact same thing. You can do it. See, you got in the top 10, you had first place Ricky, second place Colin Morikawa. So this is a pretty good starting point. You just have to, as everyone knows, understand with PGA DFS the volatility. With we're going to land on some landmines, and it's our best to try to navigate away from them, or at least consolidate our player pool where we don't have too much exposure with the good lineups when we have, Ricky Fowler and Colin Morikawa together. So that is it. You can obviously go into the player IQ tool and do what we talked about with 290 to 310 and just look at the best drivers, just strictly strokes gained off the tee here. For those exact holes, Isaiah Salinda, Chris Goddard again, Norman Jong, Thorbjornsen, Cameron Champ, Rasmus Hogard, and then you can add in the approach numbers. And then we can get an overall model look at what their combined course fit is for the course, obviously being Detroit Golf Club, what they're going to face this week. So I think that's it, guys. You can check out the blog and articles for the playbook, the player IQ tutorial, and the spectrum data kind of walkthrough. But until then, I think that'll do it, guys. We're at 30 minutes. So appreciate everybody tuning in. As always, you can hit the like button, subscribe. You can check us out at fantasygolfbag.com. I think there's a lot of interesting tools that'll kind of open your eyes a little bit to the actual data for the PGA Tour to use for betting and PGA DFS. Oh, I forgot to mention if you go to our simulations, when we load in stuff, so this is what it looked like from last week. We added a few more new ones. So now you have all the tournament stuff. So you have tournament outcomes. It's top fives, top tens, wins, made cut, missed cut, etc. DraftKings, FanDuel. We have tournament head-to-head. So it's 72-hole head-to-heads. We have 3 balls and groups. So that's 2 to 5. Pretty easy. All you have to do is go add in the players that you want to go simulate. You can include the cut or not. We'll do 1,000 really quick. And then you can run a simulation on those groups or head-to-heads, etc., and see which of those, might have the biggest EV against whatever book you're betting it on. So take a look at that as well. I think that's a pretty fun tool. And obviously it has single round head-to-heads and 3 balls. So you can do, Russell Henley, Aaron Rye. You can do, Keegan, and you could go back. Go Keegan, Fleetwood. Where's Keegan at? Where'd you go, Keegan? Right there. So you can do Tommy Fleetwood and Keegan head-to-head. We'll just do 1,000 really quick. You can run a simulation for a single round, and you can see Keegan wins 47.4% of the time. Tommy Fleetwood wins 43.5% of the time. Only 1,000 sims, so pretty small. You can bump it up to 100,000 or 50,000 and get a better sample. But pretty cool look at it, and very easy to run your own stuff if you don't want to just tail our bets. That is exactly what you can do, and you can make some customizations to those sims as well. So, all right, that'll do it. Appreciate it, guys. Best of luck this week for the Rocket Classic. As always, you can reach out to me on Twitter at Redkacheek or in the Discord. If you join the Fantasy Golf Bag Discord, happy to answer questions. As everybody in there knows, I'm basically 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. But yeah, always happy to talk through the stats and golf and modeling the sims, etc. So best of luck this week, guys. You can check us out at fantasygolfbag.com. And until later this week, take care, be safe. See ya.